mystery. A paranormal perfect storm known simply as Monsterland. The Monsterland podcast is recorded live in an undisclosed location somewhere in the heart of high strangeness, just outside of Monsterland, Massachusetts. And now, here are your hosts. Paranormal author, researcher, and speaker, Ronnie LeBlanc. And the host of The Curse of Oak Island, drilling down on history, Matty Blake.
What's up, Matty?
Michael Devin. Hello, Ronnie.
How are you?
Hello, monsters. Welcome to another edition of Monsterland, broadcasting live somewhere just outside the scary, spooky confines of Monsterland, Massachusetts.
I still haven't gotten sick of that theme song yet.
It's fantastic,
Michael Devin.
From Whitesnake. Again, and if you go back, we talked about the weird connection there with the Foo Fighters.
Right.
And Dr. Lynn mentioning Foo Fighters. We didn't know that song that you heard and parts of the album were recorded at Dave Grohl's studio. It's a whole thing. And these things continue to happen with us as we build this, the coincidences and the weirdness. Tonight's guest, here's how this goes. Tonight's guest, as advertised, is John Lear. And for those of you who, again, I always have to qualify, a lot of you who have found us are not into this type of thing. Those of you who are will be absolutely acutely aware of who John Lear is. They call him the Godfather, the father of conspiracy, and former pilot for the CIA, just a huge figure in this space. Says that there are bases on the moon,
millions and millions of citizens. So we wanted to bring him on and kind of talk more about this because he's pretty controversial. And you called me today a little nervous with having him on.
I actually, we're gonna go there. We're gonna go there. All right, we'll go there. Well, here's the thing. Here's the thing with John Lear. So let me explain what happens. So normally we do this little preamble. We take the interview, and depending on when the person calls, sometimes we record it live out of sequence.
Correct.
But what's happened now is that John has not patched through, and we did have a confirmation from him that he would come on the show, but he has not patched through. And I called Ronnie before the show because in doing research for this interview, I watched a lot of John Lear stuff. And my only knowledge of John was vis-a-vis UFOs and the moon stuff.
Right.
And his connections to the whole Area 51 thing. And
Bob Lazar.
His friendship with Lazar. I knew all that. I knew his nickname, the conspiracy, but I don't go there because I'm not as much of a conspiracy guy as I am into paranormal. And to me, they're two different things, I think, at least in my estimation.
Yeah, there's some tie-in, but there's some conspiracies that, the false flag, stuff like the Sandy Hook and all these different things.
This is where, so I didn't want to get into it out of respect for John, and he's not here to defend himself, but I'll be honest. I'll come with it. I called Ronnie an hour before we got here and said, I don't want to have him on.
I was shocked because
what if we don't have him on?
Forever to get him.
Yeah, I know. I'm sorry. I go, don't be mad.
Wouldn't it be awesome to get John Lear? Yeah, it would be great.
Well, here's what happened.
Dickhead.
Here's what happened. Okay, and I have an analogy to make here. So I called Ronnie, first of all. I'll finish the anecdote. And I said, what if we didn't have him on just asking?
Yeah.
And Ronnie said, whoa.
You sound like my wife. Like re-talking like this. Well, he said, me not happy. Me no like. Me lift weights, drink beer, love beer.
So, and here's why. Because in watching his stuff back, he gets into false flag events, Vegas, 9/11, and I don't want to have anything on this podcast, and I'm not saying that it's not, I don't know. I can't pretend to know sitting here outside of Monsterland, Massachusetts. I'm a freaking actor, comedian, host guy who's into the paranormal. That's all my only credentials. But my belief is those things really happened. Now, whether they were a cabal and run by the government, but I believe people got killed.
Right. People died.
And I lived, Sandy Hook happened on my birthday.
Oh, wow.
And I lived 5 minutes from Sandy Hook in Connecticut at the time. And I could not stop crying for like 4 days. Yeah. And I refused to have anyone on here who might say something when a parent of one of the victims would hear it. And even though it's not coming from us,
right.
I'm very reticent to get into conspiracies like that. And I want to make a line in the sand, and I think there's an important point. It highlights an important point, that this is a paranormal podcast, not a conspiracy podcast. And I know that might piss a lot of people off. But I have no interest in going down that false flag route. That's because I think it's too political.
I can totally respect that.
Right?
Yeah.
Now, again, the cabal might be the same that runs you. I don't know.
Right.
And maybe I'm off base on that. But when I heard him say that, I was like, and it's the same thing that happened to me with Flat Earth. I was looking at the Flat Earth stuff for fun because it's fun.
Yeah.
And it was almost like a sociological experiment with me looking at this Flat Earth stuff, because I was like, these guys who believe in it, they answer everything. Like they've got, and it's not just pie in the sky stuff. They've got math. They will challenge you. They will challenge the smartest guys with, well, how come we can't see beyond this part? And you said the math says this. Like they've got their ducks in a row in terms of being able to defend their belief. And that's how I was watching. It was just kind of fun because you see the question. So this one documentary I watched, and I kind of like, let me say this too. I like the spirit of the Flat Earthers because they're just, it's a rebellious punk rock spirit in a way.
Right.
It's like,
yeah, totally.
So there's a globe in my classroom. So that's how I know. I've never seen it. Show me that it's a globe. You know what I mean? Show me that it's round. I kind of like that. So I'm watching this thing and they flash the question up on the screen and then they address the question. Por ejemplo, well, how's the sunrise and sunset? And then they answer it. How come we can't see past the horizon? They answer it. How come this? And then everything they're just answering every question. I'm like, wow, that's really interesting.
Right.
What about the treaty in Antarctica? Why can't we go? They answer it. I'm like, wow, they're answering all these things. And then 45 minutes in the documentary, they go, well, who's behind all this? And they cut to the guy. He's like, the Jews. I'm like, no! I'm like, what is going on? I'm like, no. I was trying to shut my computer off. Like, what is happening? No. And that's how I felt watching John Lear, I was with him and I'm all into it. And then he starts talking about false flag and Vega and I go, So I mean no disrespect, but I'm looking at it as a blessing, maybe that he didn't get through to us, and maybe he might call up during this interview, and I'll ask him about his conspiracy beliefs or whatever, and have him try to defend it. But I probably won't.
Well, I mean, at first when you called me, I was kind of like, Matty, really? But thinking about it, I think, hey, like you said, blessing in disguise, man.
Because people really, he's considered like the man in this.
Oh yeah,
by a lot of people.
Yeah. They believe what he has to say. They believe that he has intel that he's sharing and a lot of things. People, question too if he's still or somehow kind of connected with the CIA and disinformation and all this different stuff.
He knows a lot of stuff now for a guy who is, behind his desk and again, with all due respect, an elderly guy. And he says himself, I'm not ragging on him. He says, I haven't left my bunker here in 8 years. Yeah, the lair. I haven't left the lair in 8 years. He talks about MJ-12, and we keep getting excited about this tic-tac-toe thing. He believes it's absolute crap. And he thinks that's the other thing with him. Everything's a conspiracy. Yeah. Everything. So the Tic-Tac UFO that you and I have, and again, you can go back and listen to old episodes of this very podcast. We are excited about it.
Right.
He says crap. He says if you listen to the sound, those are sound effects. When pilots, and Ian knows a lot about flying, our producer-director. He says when those masks are on, those oxygen masks, and the mics are on. You know what? Let's play real quick. We've already played it before, but we're going to play. I want to play a little bit of that audio again. This is what he says is bullcrap, among many things. He says the sound of the pilots is fake because you don't hear ambient air sounds with when those Navy fighter pilots are flying. He also says it's bullcrap how they talk to each other. He said, I don't care what's going on. Navy pilots should not talk to each other like these guys talk to each other with the, hey, dude, look at that. Oh, my God. Oh, my God. So he's got a lot of problems with this video. And he says, that it's just simply Harry Reid
giving
money to a buddy to set himself up for for his post-political career, and that this is all just crap, and that this is a fake disclosure, basically, is what he says. And I'm having a little trouble with the audio. Here we go.
Like you could do with a helicopter, but
Hold on, that's not it. Stand by, Ronnie Phil. Oh, here we go. Tic tac. Yeah, hold on. Here we go. We can edit some. There we go. Okay.
Dude, there's a fucking drone, bro. There's a whole fleet of them. Look on the ASA.
Okay, right there, that noise, he says fake.
My gosh.
And that talk, he says, is not.
They're all going against the wind. The wind's 120 knots from the west. Look at that thing, dude.
And he says they wouldn't talk to each other about the wind, the directions are wrong, everything. He said, and the thing looks fake to him. It looks like
these pilots are in San Diego. So
True.
They're,
Yeah, bro.
Hey, dude.
Hey, dude. That's right, bro.
That's pretty accurate.
And he hasn't flown in a while. Again, no disrespect, but maybe pilots do talk to each other like this now.
That's not our LNS, though, is it? It's not. That is the LNS, dude. Well, if there's like look at that thing.
By the way, we never talked about this. This right here.
West.
Hold on. This line.
My gosh.
Wait.
They're all going against the wind. The wind's 120 knots from the west. Look at that thing, dude. That's not our LNS, though, is it? It's not. That is the LNS, dude. Well, if there's like look at that thing.
Now it starts
It's
rotating.
rotating.
This is the line.
There's a whole fleet of them. Look on the ASA.
Boom. We didn't talk about that.
Fleet.
Well, look on the ASA. There's a whole fleet of them. Look on the ASA.
There's a whole fleet of them.
I think that might be the other videos that might be coming.
Well, and then that's another thing that John Lear says is like he says that MJ-12 has, and for those of you who don't know, MJ-12, according to
Majestic 12.
right him and other sources, is a very old program, started a long time ago to look into this phenomenon, hugely funded, millions and millions and millions of dollars, more than 22 million. He says they have videos that blow this away. He says, why would you show a crappy fake one, his words, John Lear's words, not mine, when we've got stuff that will blow you away? They've got objects, they've got life forms. He says they've got it all. So he said, this is bullshit. This is a fake disclosure.
So does he, when you watched that, those videos there, does he say that basically this is not going to happen? There won't be a disclosure.
He says there will never be disclosure ever. Not going to happen, according to him.
Interesting.
He said there's just too much, and we don't. These things are a threat. Now it's funny. Tom DeLonge uses the same words, aerial threats. He calls them unidentified aerial threats, which is very interesting. And now Trump announces Space Force.
Right.
2 weeks ago, a week and a half ago. So
the timing, man. I'm telling I don't know.
Yeah. So, all right. It's going to be, I think, an abridged version of the show because there is no guest. And our whole, the case file and everything is based on John Lear.
Right.
But I did want to share one nice thing that happened to me because last week's episode, I loved the David Weatherly episode.
Oh, awesome.
And
Fantastic.
again, if you've just found us because you thought you were a fan of John Lear and I've just shit on him for 15 minutes and he's not even here. Imagine how many people saw his picture and be like, oh, I'll check this stupid podcast out, and there's no guest and I just crap on him for 15 minutes. Again, look, the guy was a wonderful fighter pilot, an amazing career. I mean, no disrespect. I'm just speaking honestly about what I feel about some of what he said. That's all.
Absolutely.
But, what was I going to say?
Well, no, I just remembered.
What?
You told me to remind you about your
Birds. That's what it was. Okay, so this is a stupid little thing, but last week with David Weatherly got kind of dark. I told about some of the darker elements of what's happened to me in my paranormal journey.
Gosh.
Well, this past weekend on Saturday night, I love golf. It's my little Zen place. And so whenever I can, I try to get out there, and it's where I forget everything. It's my fishing. Some guys fish, some guys paint, whatever it is. You do. Golf is my zen place. I oftentimes play alone. I play alone in the mornings. It's very zen for me. It's almost like a religious. When I'm out on the golf course, I don't think about anything else. And my mother, my late mother, who I've mentioned on this podcast before, who died 2 years ago, pancreatic cancer. She was my favorite golf partner. I just loved playing with her. We had a ball. We would sneak out all the time. She was obsessed. She was an addict. She was a golf addict, as was I.
That's great.
So we had just beautiful Sunday nights we used to play. And so Sunday night or it might have been Saturday night, but I was playing by myself, and I was fifth hole, whatever. And it's a beautiful night, and I hit the ball and was just driving to my ball, and I wasn't even thinking about her. And a bird, like there's little birds all over the course, different times. But this little bird, as I was driving, came like flying by, and the best way, it flew right across me, and then like the best way I could describe it was like it was playing with me. It was like a dolphin following you in the water if you're in a boat.
Yeah.
It was going in and out of the cart. And when it first came by me, I went, "Oh, hi, Mom." I swear to God, and I wasn't thinking about her at the time. I said it out loud. I go, "Oh, hi, Mom."
Not even thinking about what you said.
I wasn't thinking about her either, so it wasn't like I was in an emotional place, like, oh, my mom, which I do oftentimes out there. I was just driving to my ball kind of mindlessly, and I saw this bird for a half second. Like, I go, "Hi, Mom," and it just followed me, and it was following me. And birds don't really do that, and I know it's probably just a bird, but it was just kind of dancing with me to the point where I went by my ball. Like I drove by because I was just enjoying this moment, and I welled up, and I was just like, "Oh my God, I think it is my mother." It was flying next to me for a little while, and it'll go through the cart. It went around it. It was just following me and fluttering. And
like totally engaged with you.
100%. It was like, if it wasn't my mother manifesting itself through a spirit animal, then the bird was playing with me. You know what I mean? Like at the very least, it was a cool thing with an animal. Wow. But isn't that funny that the second I saw that bird, I didn't go, "Whoa, bird." I went, "Hi, Mom."
Yeah.
And like, where does that come from?
That's crazy.
So I went past my ball and just kept driving because I didn't want it to end. And then finally, of course, it just kind of flew off.
Wow.
And I was like, "Oh,
that's awesome."
And
we're talking about the spirit animals.
That's why I wanted to bring that up.
Yes.
So in the episode preceding that, you talked about your spirit animal as you felt it land on you, which is the praying mantis.
Yeah.
And he talked about animals showing up and being kind of like, representative of
your totem. Yeah.
Right. Totem animals. Yes. Yes. They could be representing what you are, what protects you, your spirit or somebody, or your essence or anything like that. But so I thought with all the it got a little dark last week. But when that happened to me, I texted Ronnie. I said, "Remind me to tell the bird story on the next episode."
What kind of bird was it? Do you know?
I don't know. I'll find out because the pro will know. They're ubiquitous on my golf course. They're little black like chickadee things.
Okay.
And they will flutter near you, but I've never had one like dance with me like that. It was following my cart.
It'll be interesting to see if you have more encounters with that particular type of bird in the future. You know what I mean? If it's different types of birds or if it's that same kind of bird.
I'm just realizing this too as you say that. My mother loved birds. I swear to God, she had a bird feeder.
Oh wow.
We had, as I mentioned, I had a pet bird when I was a kid. She had a bird, so she loved to watch birds out the window. So that's kind of funny. I just thought of that too. And here's a little story. I just lost a cousin, my cousin Brian. Yeah, he was the best. He was only 60, and he was on a business trip, and he had a massive heart attack. I think he just passed, and one of his children gave an unbelievable speech at his funeral, and what she said was that when her grandfather, my Uncle Joe, my great Uncle Joe, who was the best, he was awesome. She had a thing with him that if she saw a cardinal, it would be him. And she said that. This is an unbelievable story, actually. She said she got to work one morning, and 2 cardinals flew right by her face. And she goes, "Oh, I wonder who Grandpa's with. I wonder who Grandpa's with." And she went into work, and her mother was on the phone and said, Daddy passed.
No.
Yeah.
Whoa.
So I'm just
That's
remembering
heavy.
that now as
That's
I'm telling
heavy.
the other bird story. Yeah. So isn't that incredible? So we want to hear stories like this from you too. Why don't we get to some Monster Mail? We'll tell you how you can do that.
Sounds great. I think we should still do a Monsterland case file. What do you think?
I hate when you defy me.
So So this one's interesting.
Let's not let a lack of a guest stop our normal flow. You're right, Ronnie. All right, let's go.
You know, we try to tie them into our guests and everything else. And this is about an interesting case. This is a case file 1953-94. Okay. If you haven't figured it out already, I try to organize them based on the year first. And then whatever kind of significance. So this one...
Totally missed that until you just said
Well, so this one's interesting. But this is over Otis Air Force Base. And this goes back 1953, where a jet was taking off in pursuit of an unidentified flying object. So it was taken off from the base, and as it was on pursuit of this craft, this light, whatever it was, and it was a funny, interesting name, a Starfighter.
So
the name of the jet here.
Otis Air Force Base is in Cape Cod, Massachusetts.
Yes.
About an hour from where we are now.
Mm-hmm.
And 1953, they see something. Was this reported, do you know, to them, or did they see it? Follow?
So this was, I guess they picked it up on radar. This was originally in the book called Above Top Secret by Timothy Good, which came out in the 80s.
Yeah.
Which is a classic UFO book. And this one was particularly in Massachusetts and Cape Cod, so that's why I had included it in my book, Monsterland. But yeah, they were, I guess, as oftentimes, these type of the F-94C Starfire interceptor. These were typically sent up after UFOs, and it's believed that it had classified equipment on board, whether that was the early of thermal imaging, who knows what it was on here. But when it went up after this thing, everything shut off of the jet, and it just seized. And so the pilot, I guess, popped the canopy. There's explosions that will pop the canopy, and the radar operator is supposed to kind of, I guess, go off first, and then he would jump out. And I guess there was a gentleman that was near the base that when they were in pursuit of this jet, this UFO rather, the canopy popped off. The plane disappeared.
Their plane
disappeared. The pilot parachuted into this guy's backyard. There was no explosion. It was a full tank of gas in the jet. And the plane disappeared along with the co-pilot, the radar operator. And so the pilot landed into the backyard. And the guy's waiting, the gentleman that was witnessing this in his backyard, the canopy dropped, the guy dropped, and the plane just disappeared. Now they said that it must have fallen into the ocean. But they searched for weeks. They combed. They couldn't find anything. And they just basically said it was malfunction in the jet. Guy died. That's it. But I go into a lot more detail into this story in the book. But it's just an interesting case, and I wanted to talk to our non-guest, John Lear.
disappearing the interplay between, military craft and UFO, which is...
There's a lot of stories where the UFO and the airplane or a jet will interact, and the jet will disappear, or the plane will disappear. And what we just had, a couple years ago with the Malaysian Airlines jet.
Yeah, where'd that go?
A lot of theories were that there was UFO involved, and
it was in the news just like last week. They've officially called it off the search, last week, as we sit here in June of 2018.
Yeah. So
so
interesting.
Cape Cod fighter jet chases a UFO. Guys eject, and the plane disappears. Was this a top secret file that was released in the Freedom of Information Act? Or?
So, yeah, I believe that Timothy Good had uncovered this particular case. But what's interesting is he talks about the radar operator could not be found, and the pilot had a difficult time convincing the owner of the property that he had parachuted into that his aircraft had crashed because the man had been sitting near the open screen window and heard nothing. And if there were a crash with a full tank of gas, there'd be an explosion, there would be some kind of wreckage, and it just literally went into thin air, just disappeared.
Even in the ocean, there'd be a debris field for a time.
Right.
Anyway, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Some sort of...
Yeah.
Unless it took them days to get out there to look. which I'm sure it didn't.
It says, what caused the complete and simultaneous failure of all engine and electrical systems? The pilot swears that without warning, the cockpit lights, navigation lights, instruments, radio, and engine simply went dead. Some of the circumstances involved in this case were classified, and I've had to frame my story around them. So this was the original writer. Jets of this nature were dispatched to intercept aerial objects that failed to respond to radar identification. It was just on this type of mission that the aircraft vanished.
Holy God. Do you know, again, this might prove John Lear wrong on his theory that we just talked about, that these pilots don't talk to each other in a casual manner, because I've found while you were doing that audio of the pilot from that flight during the time they were chasing the UFO, they have the audio from the cockpit. Here it is.
Oh, fantastic.
Here it is.
Don't freak out there, okay? We've got to keep our composure. We've gone too far. There's too much to lose. We've got to keep our composure.
Wow. Wow.
That's
stunning audio.
Groundbreaking stuff.
Wow, man. And right on the Cape. What an incredible.
Yeah. And so I go into more detail about this particular case in Monsterland, but I thought it would have been appropriate to talk to John about it. But
yeah, I would love to know, how many of those there are that the plane disappears.
Yeah.
And, what the military did about that.
Well, you think of all those Bermuda Triangle, cases.
Right.
And
And again, to bring up the aforementioned Tom DeLonge, it's like if these things are happening as much as he says they are, then a lot of these disappearances, there might be more to them.
Right.
Unbelievable. Wow. Great one, Ronnie. That is a great one. 1953-94, Cape Cod, Massachusetts, right down the street, Otis Air Force Base. Let's open some mail. What do you think?
Sounds good.
Ronnie, how can people send us some monster mail?
They can send us an email at monsterlandreport@gmail.com, or they can visit us at our Facebook page.
We want to hear from you, please, if you have comments, questions, and especially if you have a story you'd like to tell and perhaps even be on the podcast. We can read your story anonymously, or you can be part of this. We want to hear your story. Let's dive into our monster mail. We had a great one this week I wanted to get to. Hey, Monsterland, love the show. Thank you.
Nice.
Regarding the UFO you saw in Rhode Island, discussed last episode, is there a place to make any comparative references to the size, speed, shape, and colors that you witnessed? And if so, did you consider comparing to similar sightings? Also, do you plan to do an episode on the works of H.P. Lovecraft and potential ties to New England paranormal tales? Thanks, Chad from Bolton, Mass. Thank you, Chad.
Central Mass in the house. That's
Word. Bolton, Mass, a lovely little hamlet, sleepy little town.
Yeah. HP, that's a great idea, actually. Rhode Island native.
Right. He came up in a previous episode in regard, I believe it was the first episode with Nick Redfern.
Yeah.
And we mentioned it was in relation to Slender Man. And you can go back and listen to episode 1 with Nick Redfern. We talk a little bit about Slender Man, I believe, and how he was created in a contest. And I believe that was there, like it was like always there.
Right.
And so does Nick. It was kind of like a trope throughout history, and perhaps put in the creator's mind, maybe subconsciously, maybe he didn't know it. But the whole notion of that was highlighted by H.P. Lovecraft, who created a character, and then later claimed that he saw this smiling, grinning, fiendish kind of looking man. I believe he was out to dinner or something after he'd created it down to the detail. So he creates this character, and he's sitting at a restaurant or something and sees this character walk by him and give him the kind of evil.
Wow.
As he described it, kind of like a knowing smile, like wink, wink. Yeah, it's me. I'm here. And he swore that the character he created showed up to him.
His creation manifested.
Yes. So I think that'd be a great idea, and potential ties to New England paranormal tales. That's a great suggestion.
I love it.
Insofar as our craft, I got a few messages on that. Where do we stand a week later, Ronnie, with our UFO sighting? We haven't even talked. We've been so busy.
You know, we haven't. Based on that, you know, the size of a star, when I'm trying to play it back in my mind, and it seemed to be way, way, way up there.
Yeah.
And it seemed to be equal size to the stars that we're looking at as well.
Right.
And in comparison, again, it was very tough to determine how high up it was.
Right.
But it seemed to be up there, and it was moving at such a clip that it has to be going pretty fast compared to what we've, just normal plane speed.
Right. And I mentioned on an Instagram video that we were going to report that to MUFON because to answer Chad's question specifically, there are definitely forums with which you can report these things and look up other case files that are coming in. You actually, we follow like a Twitter feed. I forget the name of it that does like live time reports on Twitter around the world.
Right.
So you get these alerts and it'll say like sighting in Amarillo, Texas, and it describes the sighting very scientifically, like a form, and then a sighting in Argentina. And so if we did something like that, if we, I'm sure there's a search function on things like this where you can say small star-like craft,
right,
change colors on command or whatever keywords we could put in.
Right. And we can look at within that area that maybe there are other reports around that same time that saw that. But it's that was an interesting night and how everything kind of came together.
Yeah. I guess a week later, I've been thinking about it, and I think I'm more convinced the more I thought about it that it's so anomalous that it's definitely, I mean, truly, as I said in last week's episode, like I saw an unidentified flying object by its true definition, but I was kind of hesitating to say like I saw my first UFO. But listening back to that episode and thinking about it over time, in a week, I'm kind of more convinced that there was something to it.
Well,
because it felt. I'll give you an example. All right, are you going to bring up the text last
night?
night?
Well, I was going to that, but I was going to say the feeling that we had.
That's what it is
when it happened.
Okay.
After what we had just talked about.
Okay.
And
let's get into this.
And the response to us talking to it.
Right.
You layer all that stuff.
Right.
It's just there's too many.
And this is the type of thing that you can't quantify when you discuss these issues. It's very hard to account for feeling and a knowing, because then it just sounds, when you're trying to talk to someone factually who maybe doesn't believe, a skeptic, or someone who's trying to suss this stuff out, and you talk about feeling, or I knew, or destiny, I felt why, that's when people kind of go,
right.
What'd the craft look like?
How can you measure
I can, exactly, right. Yeah. But, so here's a quick little story. Last night I was at a golf tournament at a casino here in New England, the whole Foxwoods Mohegan Sun area, and I texted Ronnie. We should take a screen grab of this text. Well, I got back to my room, and I'm always looking up now, constantly. Well, I've done that most of my adult life, actually, since I've got back, since I got into this stuff. But now I'm really looking up.
Oh, yeah.
So but it's become such a habit. I wasn't even going back to remember, like, oh, let's see if there's a UFO. I just look up, like Dr. Lynn said. And by the way, you can check that episode out, our interview with Dr. Lynn Kitai. She says, look up. So I'm looking up, and I see immediately, now it's raining. It's starting to rain. And I look up, and it's the dark sky, but just like a shadow person description, in the dark sky, there's a darker circle. And it's just hovering, like about where the moon is. So there's moon, dark sky, no stars that I could see, probably because of the light pollution from the casinos.
Right.
But then like a dark spot. And for a minute, I thought it was when you see a flash bulb and it leaves a spot? I thought it was like a spot in my eye. I was like, oh God, I have something, so I start blinking, and then I look to the side, not one over there. I look back, it's still there. I go, okay. Then I'm like, is it something on the window? No, it's not something on the window. So I'm trying to take pictures of it like an idiot, and it's nighttime, so it's just like flash bouncing back. It's a picture of my hotel window. It's just like a bright flash. It just looks horrible. There's no way you could take a picture of it. So I was frustrated, and it's still there. And so I text Ronnie. It's like 1 a.m. Yeah. And I go, black orb. Well, hold on. I'll find it. Let's read it, shall we? Why not? Let's read the actual exchange.
Which I saw like at 5 this morning.
Okay, here we go. And oh wait, Ian, I wonder if we can get the camera on this. Can we, or is it too? It'd be too close up, probably. Here's what I wrote. First of all, hold on. So I go 1:16 a.m. But I was fine.
Okay. Flip your hand to the.
Okay.
There's a camera over your shoulder.
Okay, here?
Yeah.
Okay, here we go. Here's a wide shot of it, and there's the. Now this is the next. This is the next morning.
Hold on.
Do you see it? Okay.
See.
Hold on. See that?
Oh.
Look at that. Okay.
Oh.
Right. So wouldn't you be a little like, Okay. So here's what I wrote to Ronnie at 1:16. There's a black orb my outside of the wall. It's too like, stop judging me. No, it doesn't say that.
Stop judging.
There's a black orb floating outside my hotel room window. It's too dark to take a picture of it or see what it is. Imagine a darker moon than the dark sky. If I wake up, very astute of me. If I wake up in the morning and it's some sort of ball on a wire, then I know it's nothing. But if I wake up in the morning and there's nothing there, something blank really weird is hanging in the sky above my room. It's late. I've had a couple, but not that many. All right? It's literally what the text says. So I wake up in the morning, and again, we've seen, if you're watching this on video on our YouTube channel or wherever, you see that kind of black spot. And when I woke up in the morning, indeed it was a ball on a wire. Wow. And the wire was super thin. And the structure holding the wire was so far in the distance that you never would have seen it at night. My point in this whole cockamamie story is, despite sending you the text, it was a kind of a fun thing for me. Right. I knew in my bones that this was a ball on a wire almost. I kind of knew it. And it was kind of fun. It was kind of spooky. I was like, what is that? But I never gave it a serious thought. Yeah. The thing with you, I felt it. And I think we both felt it.
Right. Oh, yeah.
And so that's why, that to me is an example of
we looked at
when
the
you
same
know.
spot.
Yeah,
right?
that, yep.
Immediately, there's so many different things as you play it back.
Yep.
Like I said, you layer that on, and you're like, okay, all right. And it was pretty awesome when we saw that thing cruising across the sky.
Yeah, absolutely. and we both targeted it, and it responded, as I said, to what I was saying. So yeah, that's an example to me of the experiencer himself or herself really is the only one that knows, and
right.
and you can describe these things all you want, but you can't, describe what you were feeling at that time.
Right.
And that's why I always try to take these things seriously when people talk about the emotions attached to them.
Yeah.
And that's where like belief comes in. I was listening to Joe Rogan's interview with Tom DeLonge. I had been dying to listen to that, and I hadn't had a chance. It's like an hour and whatever change, and I've just been, since it came out, I just have never been able to sit down and fully listen to it. And I did on the drive to said golf tournament. And man, it's so funny. Like you can hear, Rogan's become a skeptic. He wants to believe. Right. He's into this stuff. But he's playing definitely the skeptic rolling. You don't think it was just the Cold War? You don't think it was just this? Or you think, why would they tell a rock star? He's got that whole tone with DeLonge. And you can hear the emotion in DeLonge's voice because he knows what he knows. Right. You know what I mean? Yeah. And you could never convince someone like, and I don't mean to, I'm not besmirching Joe Rogan. He's fantastic and I get it. But you could never convince someone like that. You could tell him all the stories in the world. And, all he hears is those key things, and it's the voice in his head. Prove it to me. Prove it to me. Right. Prove it to me. Why you? Why you? Why would they tell you this? Why would they tell you this? And DeLonge knows what he knows. And by the way, if you go back, and I encourage you to listen to this interview now, if you haven't heard it, the shit that he's talking about is starting to come out.
There's a lot more coming.
Absolutely. And so he's being slowly justified.
Right. Yeah, a lot of people giving him shit because he's like, this guy, rock star, please. He's proven it.
Yeah, like we're starting to see now that some of these things that sounded so outlandish when he talks about, like, so for example, in that episode, which, was, I guess, I think it was like October of 2017, maybe, he's saying like, well, I'm with a team of high level. I can't say who they are. I can't say who they are. And you're sitting there, and even me, I'm listening, going like, that sounds like bullshit.
Right. But then you see when he walked out those guys,
Boom.
right?
And now we know the whole program, Alessandro,
Right.
you know,
Robert Bigelow.
Bigelow, and boy, you know what? Those names he couldn't name, they were real.
Right.
And the programs he couldn't talk about, it existed.
Crazy.
So who's laughing now in a way? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's funny too. Rogan, he's playing the skeptic, and he actually got into it in an interview with Steven Tyler. He did too. They got into the paranormal, and it's so funny. He's like, I want to believe, but I don't because this. I think it's all bullshit. I did the show that proves it's all bullshit. Da da da. And then they, moments later, almost the next breath, he's trying to explain to Tyler that like, well, ghosts could be just like residual energy left behind by traumatic events. I'm like, well, that's a pretty big freaking thing. You know what I mean? Like, so don't call them ghosts then, fine, whatever. But that's incredible. You know, people are trying to figure this out. Nobody knows. And the people who say that it doesn't exist, they don't know either. They don't know that it doesn't exist. Right. They want it. That's another thing. Oh, I'm going off on a rant. This is supposed to be Monster Mail. But that's another thing, Ronnie. It's like, you know, skeptics get to play this cool game where they say, belief doesn't come into it for me. You're colored by belief. Well, guess what? Skepticism is a form of belief.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
I'm scientific minded. It's like ego based a lot of times.
Right.
I'm scientific minded. So your view then is being shaded by your lack of belief. You don't want it to be true, just like we want it to be true.
Correct.
Right?
Right. And it never will be because they're going to be like this.
Do we have any updates, Ronald, on the Monster Mail from last week? The UFO local. We got a couple Facebook pings on that.
We don't. I'm trying. I did see Tom's sister a couple days ago, but I'm trying to get some time with him. He's a little nervous, but I know he's working on trying to get in touch with that police officer that was involved as well.
If you didn't listen to last week's episode, go back during Monster Mail. We basically open a brand new breaking case file happening right now in Monsterland or just outside of Monsterland. We called him Tom. He wants to remain anonymous for now. Not Tom DeLonge. We've moved on. It's a fake Tom. And fake Tom saw lights, and then him and a local cop around Monsterland saw a craft fly right over their house silently.
Right. Yeah. He's seen these craft several times, the shape of diamonds, multiple ones almost following each other. So it got to the point that he thought there were drones, called the cops. They showed up, and they saw one fly right over his house with the flashlight right on it.
We got to get to that house, and we will let you know as that story progresses. And please, one more time, Ronnie, how do they email us?
monsterlandreport@gmail.com.
Do it.
Do it now.
Do it. Come on, do it.
You can do it.
Do it. Well, we hope you enjoyed our non-interview episode. Our phantom guest, John Lear. Apologies to his fans who might have come here when they saw the Insta ad, but we have the proof. You have the email that he did confirm.
Yeah.
And maybe
We'll have him back on.
Yeah, we'll have him on another date. I'd be happy to have him on under those parameters that we just stick to the more kind of UFO stuff. Spacey stuff. Yeah. I did watch. I got to say before we wrap up shop here, I did watch a site that he kind of mentions more than once. Bruce Sees All, which are the moon videos. Oh, yeah. This guy with the telescope, and he says he's figured out a way to get through the kind of atmospheric conditions of the moon. And I got to say, a lot of it, I didn't see what they see, but then some of it, you definitely see that there's like a bridge. There are these coil structures that are perfectly rounded in perfect symmetry on either side of something. They're just like, it would be like
railings?
Yes, railings or halogen lights that are curved, like, picture giant, like curved lights. They're just they're like shapes that don't occur in nature that I've ever seen. So some of it is kind of compelling. They almost look like underground bases, or what they look like to me, like electrical plants.
Well, that's
which is interesting.
If he's talking about millions of citizens being on the moon, they'd probably have to be in the moon, not necessarily on the surface. So
they could be craft, they could be power stations. That's what it looks like to me, like a power grid. It almost looks like You know when you were a kid and you'd open up a calculator?
Yeah.
And the guts of a calculator, how it's all laid out like that on a grid, and that's what it looks like. It looks like little shapes, some curved things, like, that's what it looks like to me. It doesn't look like houses or villages like they kind of describe it. It looks to me, what I could believe is some sort of power grid or power source, or if it is a town, as they say, or it would be underground. It looks to me like you're seeing the top of something,
right,
and that it's under a layer of ground. But yeah, some of the images are compelling, but a lot of it I was kind of like, they're circling, like, see? And I'm like, no, I just see like a blob, but I'm not trained either. Those people are probably more trained at seeing like that. So I just wanted to full disclosure say that. That'll be fun to get into.
Bruce Sees All?
Yes, Bruce Sees All. It's on YouTube, The Real Surface of the Moon. Just be careful if he starts going on a Zionist rant. I want to X out of it real quick. I'm just kidding. There's nothing on there that I saw like that. It's a callback joke. Ronnie, it'd be remiss if we didn't take a moment to thank the people that power Monsterland, make this possible. Of course, our friends at Media Boss and the great, incomparable Ian Barrett, our producer-director.
The man.
The fine folks at Pod 617, where you can find all our videos, all our podcasts. For those of you who don't have iTunes, you can find us on iTunes. But those of you who don't, you go to Pod 617. All the SoundCloud episodes are there. Yep. You can listen to them there. And of course, thank you to Team Squatchachusetts here, right outside of Monsterland.
Yeah.
They are on Facebook. If you have any sort of Bigfoot questions or a sighting, contact them.
Yep, great group of guys, and you'll be introduced to other people that have had similar experiences and encounters, and they'll also be able to help with your particular encounter and help with investigating that.
And most of all, thank you to our listeners who've been with us from episode 1.
Thank you.
And those who've just joined us tonight for the first time, go back and listen to the old episodes, and we appreciate it. Welcome to Monsterland.